Take the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you are hearing me loud and clear, folks.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. So, thanks for the DRIPTT Directorate. Thanks to the faculty and, of course, the library for organizing this webinar. We are all aware, and the importance of research is not lost on anybody. So, would have expected a path to capacity participation. However, we do know that we are all coming to terms with having to do things online. Quite a new phenomenon in Ghana. But I'm glad to welcome everyone associated with this program. I really wish all the speakers well. We all want to publish, but we also know that the skill in it is rare. It's this kind of programs that you go and you get the appetite, the energy, some insight to go out there. At least I know I'll hear of Scopus, I'll hear of Web of Science, you hear of Pablons, Hindawi, all those things. Then it whips your appetite. Then you see that people who have published are going to make a presentation. How is it even done on webinar? It's an insight because tomorrow that will be an opportunity for you and I to also present. So this is very important. It's the quality that will matter and not the quantity. And clearly from the program, it is really awash with a lot of quality. And so I'm excited and proud to be associated with this program. And I really wish everybody good luck, including our smiling moderator, Dr. Ade. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, and thank you much for your address, Dr. Sani Bashir, who is the Dean of the Faculty of Business. We are so much grateful for your beautiful address. Now we move on to our next item, which is a presentation I'll be given by Dr. Nana Yao Asabre, Director for the Directorate of Research, Innovation, Publication and Technology Transfer. Dr. Nana Asabre is a very hard-working director and has been doing so well that very soon we think that he will join the professorial entourage on this campus. On this note, I invite Dr. Nana Asabre to present to us on the topic Project Work Guidelines for Final Year Students, both DRIPTT and HND, and some important tips and guidelines in the publication process.
Okay, moderator. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your kind words. I'll try and make this presentation as fast as I can because we have 3 main research presentations and time is going. As already stated, my presentation is on project work formatting guidelines for final year students and some important tips and guidelines in the publication process. The presentation outline will first look at the formatting guidelines for project work, as well as how to write a good paper and get it published, certain steps to follow when it gets to that. We also have importance of paper writing skills, which is I'm going to discuss today. What makes a good paper? How do you know that this paper is good or not? Why is it so hard to write good papers? And then how to improve. There are ways to improve when even you are revising your paper for resubmission. There are ways to go about your review reporting and all of that. And then we have a template for good papers. What should be in a good paper and what are reviewers looking for in that regard? Any of the things we may know already, but I'll just give insight, more insight about it so that at least we are all on one page when it comes to this. And then finally, we are going to conclude. I'll conclude our presentation. Now, the final year project work formatting has become an issue in the university because there are 2 sides. You see, the students have something that they are supposed to do, and then we as academics supervise them. But at the end of the day, the format is the report, or the project work. The report comes out in a particular format that we have come up with, because we don't want students to be having different formats. We are a university of standard, and standard means that we have to get a particular format for all our students. But when the work comes to DRIPTT, what we realize is many of the students have different formats, which are not going into in accordance to what has been prescribed. So the format is in a template of Microsoft Word. So it is expected that the students should be able to use Microsoft Word and do formatting in terms of their fonts and font size, especially. The chapters which go into the content of the project work is the department dependent. That one, the department determines that DRIPTT is not going to say that your chapter 2 should be this or your chapter 3 should be that. No. Because different departments have different approaches when it comes to project work. And what we look out for, as is shown on this particular slide, is the font and font sizes. That is what we are looking for. Obviously, declaration will be in every project, education will be in every project, acknowledgements will be in, abstract will also be in, table of contents will be in, the list of figures, list of tables, chapter headings, they will all be in. So there are chapter subheadings too, and then the main heading in every chapter. And we have subheadings in every chapter too, as well as text in every chapter. And then we have figure captions and table captions, as well as content. I know we all understand these very well. We are experienced to be able to guide these students because what is happening currently, they are not getting effective guidance. And I don't know whether they are getting it, but they are rather not doing what they're supposed to do. When the project work gets to us, it's a bit problematic. We are working it out with the students, but if we get faculty members to come on board and insist on formatting before the students submit, it will help us a lot and reduce the work that is happening within my directorate currently. So the font is Times New Roman throughout. All the time, it is Times New Roman, it doesn't change. The font size for declaration is 14. Dedication is 14. Acknowledgement is 14. Abstract is also 14. Table of contents is 14. And the list of figures and list of tables, they are all 14. And sometimes the students will make it 12. At other times, it is 16. The template has been given to them, but what they do is they fidget with this. They make changes to it that they are not supposed to. The chapter headings, maybe chapter 1 on a particular page, as a chapter heading is 16. A chapter subheading, maybe chapter 1, below it is literature review. That's chapter head subheading should be 14. Now the main headings in every chapter, for example, you have chapter 1, you have introduction, maybe you have background or something of that sort, or you have problem statement. Those headings should be 12. And if there's a subheading, that one should also be 12. The text within every chapter, the font size is also 12. The figure captions should be a font size of 10, and then the table and content captions should also be a font size of 10. What is shown here is very simple, but what we are receiving comes in differently. If it comes in differently, then it becomes difficult for DRIPTT to accept that printout from the student and then bind it for completion. That is a difficult. So let's look at this. There are simple things. You see, the aspect of the whole thing is they have been given these templates, something which is there. So if it doesn't come out this way, it means they are not abiding by it. All of these are bolded within the template or the formatting guidelines. They are all bolded. So the case, for example, if you have declaration, dedication, and all of that, they are all in uppercase. So from declaration and all the chapter headings, all of them are in uppercase. And the line spacing is 1.5 throughout. And then when you have the text in every chapter, it's justified. Chapter headings and the chapter headings are at the center, and subheadings are on the left-hand side. We have all of that. So, especially these headings, they are already in the template and they shouldn't be disrupted in any way. But if you highlight, or the students highlight and then they make changes, it becomes a problem. One thing we should also realize is the project work is submitted in our names as academics. When it gets there, it is assumed that the academic staff has looked at it and has approved it. That is the assumption. So, in as much as we want to make things better for ATU and the students, we should concentrate and make sure that the project work have all of these cases there. And capitalizing each word for every chapter subheading and then the main heading, it's all clear. There are no issues there. So long as that is concerned. Now, there are lower cases as well for 2 and 3 letter words, and then the main body should also be sentence. So if it is a 2 or 3 letter word within a particular caption or a heading, it is in lowercase. And examples have been given in this format. After this presentation, I will just show the format so that we are used to it, or we understand how the format is supposed to be. And then in ATU, we use APA as a formatting standard for both referencing and inter-citations. All inter-citations should correspond to references. So there shouldn't be a case where the inter-citations within the text, as you all know, it is not reflecting in the references. Sometimes we have cases like that. Other times, the references format are wrong. We don't see where the source of the reference, whether it's a journal, whether it's a conference proceeding, whether it's a book or book chapter, you don't see it. If it is a journal, the volume may be missing, the issue or number may be missing, a range of page numbers too is also missing. All of that. These components have to be there as standard, and we have to be able to guide these students for them to do. I mean, they're even simple, because if you use Mendeley or you even use Google Scholar, cite your references, copy and paste from Google Scholar, all of that can easily be done. We also need to enlighten the students more on some of these situations. So before I go to the next, what I'm going to do is just to look at what I've gone through. And this is a template which has been given to students. You see? So what the student does is to just type project work title here and then fill in these spaces. We are in the department of maybe marketing or the department of accounting and finance. They are also in the faculty of business. Put your program title is very simple. This one, for example, declaration by students should be left there. The students shouldn't touch this. And they edit whatever is here because the program title will be different. If it's HND, in fact, we have templates for both BTech and then HND. Then we have the name and all of this place. But you see that what will be submitted will be totally different from what is here. I personally don't understand why it's like that, because this has been given. You see, so the font sizes are all here, as mentioned earlier. We have acknowledgements, which the students have to just come here and edit what is here, because this is a template. That is not what that particular student is going to use. And the abstract is there. It is a different abstract that the student will use. We have table of contents. Depending on what the content will be, the student can generate a different one from this. See, because this is going in a template. This is, we have the size of 14. We have another one, size of 14. List of figures, list of tables, the same. And then it ends. So the chapter heading is here. One size is 16. This one is 14. This one is 4. The line spacing is 1.5. There are no spaces in the paragraphs. We've noticed that a lot. A lot of spaces between paragraphs. The spaces are not supposed to be there. And all of these citations are all APA in-text citations. And examples have been given to them. So it runs like that throughout every chapter. The table captions are here. And this is a font size of 10. This is the table which has the content as 10. And then you also have the other headings through here. So this is a figure. So you have figure 1.1, the first figure in chapter 1. So the student is supposed to edit this. The student will have a different figure 1.1. The most important thing is, if you are in chapter 1, then the first figure is 1.1. And the second figure in the same chapter is 1.2, 1.3, then it's going down like that. Then you come to chapter 2, then it will be, the table will be 2.1. The content is the same size and the same font and all of that. But this figure will become 2.1. It goes out like that. So I believe that we can do it. We can do it. We can all look at this format and then guide our students. And before they actually submit, you verify whether it has been done. And we have even gone ahead to provide so many references here. So many references to guide them. That is how an APA reference should be. We have how a conference reference should be. This is for a conference. This one is also for a journal. So when you do it, a student does it, and you realize that maybe certain aspects within these are missing, then that student has to find out how to make sure that it is. If it's a conference, in proceedings, let it appear. Then the title of or the name of that particular conference. Even if you can't get where it was held, where that particular conference was held, it's okay. But these are HID students, will not be so hard on them. And then the page number. But a case whereby certain aspects within a complete reference like this, they are missing, exception of the location. And all of these are there for them to refer. Supervisors should also refer and show them that this is APA reference, this is how it's supposed to be. Once we're able to do that, I don't think we'll have a problem with any of these sort of situations in terms of students trying to clear themselves for transcripts, and then their format has issues and all of that. I believe once the format is there, we should be able to go through it and have it done. Okay. So let me continue with the presentation where I was earlier. And I'll move on to my next topic very quickly so that we have enough time. So how to get or how to write a paper, a good paper, and get it published. The act of publishing is a critical for researchers, and for us as academic staff, it's important for progression. You all know that if you don't publish in academia, you cannot progress, because it's a requirement to progress, and not progressing alone. Even if you are on a particular rank now, you still should be publishing. It's good for your CV. Normally, you cannot have a CV, a standard CV as an academic staff, and then you don't have publications for a particular academic year. They are advised to always publish so that when your CV is checked as an academic and as a researcher, you appear that within a particular year, you have about 2 or 3 publications in some journals which reflect that you are working towards the teaching activities that you are doing. Title and content of any collaborative research should always portray our research interests as authors. This is very, very important for evaluation. It means before you go into a particular article, look at your research interests. Somebody in marketing can combine with another person in computing. They can do something with electronic marketing. Nobody stops that. But it shouldn't be only one side, because all the authors within a particular article gain from that article in terms of their research interests. They should gain in the form of the fact that if one of the authors wants to use that particular paper or article for promotion, it should be able to serve the 2 of them, not only one. It's very, very important. There are cases whereby there will be a title, and you see that the authors of the title, 1 or 2 of them, in terms of their research interest and where they belong, it is not reflective of the title and the content of the paper. Publishing is hard. It's a hard activity. It's not easy to publish. The reasons are, if it gets to a journal and then the journal is top, most of these journals, they've seen very good papers, these top journals. So there's low acceptance. You have to be able to convince them a lot before they will accept your paper. And journals which are Scopus indexed, which are Web of Science indexed, which have been there for some time and have established themselves, able to publish good papers from researchers, they don't really see why you should accept your paper if the innovation is not very strong. Now, you're also competing with very good papers. Good papers are already in that particular journal. And you should be able to write enough or well enough to be able to outwit that particular company and your papers there. And then reviewers are also potential competitors. Anybody who reviews a paper will ordinarily look at the fact that what this person is writing, is he writing something which is worthwhile? Has he been able to actually go into details, be able to come out with what he is doing? And we shouldn't take reviewers for granted, because if the reviewer is not convinced about a particular article which has been written, it becomes difficult for him to accept. And we know that reviewing will normally go to somebody who is in that area and has experience of publication or publishing papers. So they are always our potential competitors. Now, what actually makes a good paper? Every good paper should have good content. And then the writing skills should be there for particular authors. The content and results, they are our job as academic staff and researchers. We always have to look at how we are going to get good content, and then how we are going to produce good results in terms of a paper. Writing skills is important. How you structure your paper, the flow that you make, the arguments that you make, what you've written in your abstract, what you've written in your introduction. When somebody reads it, does the person get a desire for the paper? Does the person get the needed attention for a particular paper? Are you interested in the paper or not? If you do it well, and it's logical, succinct, and then clear, as well as consistent, then there's no problem. we should always look at our structure, our flow, how things are going. English is our language. We don't really have a problem with English, but it is always good to write and let other people also read what you've written. And the standards are high, must be very, very high. And I know many of you will agree with me that before you got some of your papers published, you went through this. You have to put in your best efforts. The standard must be high. And then compared with others, yours is good, is best, is within that particular rank of papers that have been written in that area. And then it's convincing enough. It has actually contributed to a certain situation within society. And there's evidence of that within literature that that contribution is effective and good enough. Once that is done, then it becomes okay. So you don't have to also take reviewers for granted at all. They are there to look and critically verify whether you have enough innovation to say that this paper is actually good or not. Because if you say you've written the paper, because based on their experience, they can always verify, they can always check and see whether you have actually done that by what has been done within literature already. So the right subject matter is important. What is the subject matter that you are writing on? A well-defined problem is important all the time. We have to define our problem properly. We have to have a situation that is simple and compelling, not so complicated. The contribution should be clear. The paper, once somebody reads, he should actually see that these are your contributions within that particular field, what you've done in terms of that. And then your results should be reliable and then reproducible. Somebody should be able to look at your work and then even get something from it and further do something in relation to what listed as in your future work. Be able to do that. And then the results should be repeatable in terms of procedure. You should always have a good structure. Well, there should be logic flow within the papers that we write. The logic is always important. We all know that the paper starts with an introduction. There's always literature review. After that, you come down to your methodology or materials and methods, and it's going down. There shouldn't be any interchange of these headings or these headings within a paper. So somebody reads your introduction, it propels them to go and look at your methodology, look at your literature review, see whether you've actually read on that subject matter or not, or you understand how things are going. And then there should be referrals of your paper. This means that it is a good paper when people are reading after it's published. A good paper when people are citing it, especially if it's in a top journal. In a top journal, people are going to that particular journal and citing your paper frequently. It means what has been done in your paper is interesting to readers, and they are referring to it in their own. That is what makes a good paper. So let's understand all of this, understand them well. The more, the better in terms of many new ideas. The bigger, the better when you have a revolution, have a breakthrough, and there's a paradigm shift as well. If you have a lot of mathematics, if you have theory, you have formulas, more complex, the better. So if you are doing some analysis and then you bring in results and your results are mathematical, they are, you have some formulas and equations which are depicting those results. Elaborate on how you analyze these results, and it's clear in that it becomes a good paper in that sense. So sometimes a simple analysis of percentages doesn't help. You use SPSS or other tools, R and all of those needs to start at to be able to actually analyze your data well, which will introduce these mathematical formulas and then theory. It becomes better. More selling, the better. Maybe it's the first ever. Maybe it's the best, maybe it's unprecedented, and the innovation is good. You see what reviewers and editors look for all the time, if it's a top journalist, your contribution and what have you done that is new. That is what we hear all the time. What have you done that is new? What have you done that makes it different as well? And then the more authoritative as well, the better. So your own references, refer to your own references, and then you also look at previous work as evidence that you have read around the subject matter well, and then you know what you are doing. It's all very, very important. Let's understand this. Now, it is tedious to read your own paper. And from my personal experience, I know many of you have also experienced that if it's your own paper, you will not see mistakes. It is hard to find your own mistakes. Because sometimes it will surprise you that you've read it 4 or 5 times. Somebody reads it once and points something out to you. So the solution is you have to read it word by word, but you ask others to read. You also have different rules. Nowadays, we even have tools such as Grammarly, which can help you with grammar. So once the paper is ready, or when the paper is ready, you run it through Grammarly, and you'll be surprised. There will be certain mistakes that you even will be surprised that you made them. But that is how it is. Because writing it alone is tiring. You have to read it yourself. You're already tired. Sometimes so you become used to the paper so much because it is you. But if a different person is reading, he has a different perspective. And that person will read it in a different way. So because of that, the mistakes that you've made will come out for correction. Let's take note of that. You have to read it more than 3 times. A total of 5 times is okay. And then the responses to reviewers should be absolutely clear. This aspect is very, very important. The way we respond to reviewers can get a paper rejected. We don't respond properly. And there are 3 main factors which I'll go through over here. For example, one for a particular paper here. And the comment is the paper could benefit from a more thorough research on practical implementations of virtual laboratories versus physical ones. This is a comment that a reviewer wants to be addressed. It is not clear if the authors have found evidence of the appropriateness of using a blended or physical and virtual laboratories, a blended of physical and virtual laboratories, or one of them. So in addressing this particular comment, it would mean that word for word, whatever the reviewer has stated, you make sure that you correct it. Sometimes we are tempted to look at what the reviewer has stated and take certain things out. They will watch it. So anytime you are responding, from experience, it is always better to start with gratitude sort of statement. So thank you very much for your kind comments and suggestions. In relation to your comments, we have revised our manuscript and added experimental evaluation of the proposed solution on pages 15 to 17 in blue, the revised manuscript. Please check and verify. So it becomes clear that on pages 15 to 17, we have addressed this comment that is above, and it is in blue font in the updated manuscript. So when it goes to pages 15 to 17, in the updated manuscript, it's clear, blue font, and then now as shown on pages 15 to 17, tables 4 to 6, the revised manuscript, the experimental procedure clearly illustrates statistical assessment and experimental evaluation results. All of these things that are being stated were not in the original paper. But in order to convince the person who has, the reviewer who has made these comments, you have to address each of them one by one. And whichever pages and tables that you have updated, they go into the comments. Further evidence of our results can be accessed through web links provided in our supplementary materials file. And that is it. Then you have other comments too there. That is how some of these responses should be. And you can italicize your responses so that you place emphasis on these particular responses. So if it's like this, and indeed you have the revision also in the paper, what the reviewer will do is to go and check these revisions and see whether they have been done actually in pages 15 to 17, as well as in the tables and all of that. 17 and all of that. Check every page and update. Once that has been done, it becomes okay. So that is the first one. We have other ones here which look similar. This reviewer too. There are some issues with adherence to the APA citing style too. Thank you very much in response for your kind comments and suggestions. We have double checked and corrected all errors regarding APA citing style too. And it ends there. Then the second comment there is the paper was submitted not in accordance with the journal's template. There are issues with it. It means the whole paper has to be reformatted in accordance with the journal's template. And then you ask the reviewer to check. So we have reformatted after the gratitude statement. We have reformatted the script according to the journal's template. And that one. So I believe once we correct like this, there will not be any issues. We shouldn't take any of the comments out. They really, really, really watch. There are cases whereby the review those 3-4 rounds, and the same comment will be moving up and down until you make sure you do it, especially comments regarding analysis, comments regarding results. These two areas, reviewers don't joke with them. So if there's the typographical errors in those ones, they are not really, those ones can easily be corrected. But when it's to do with results, when it's to do with your analysis, and then there are comments there, you are expected to respond word for word based on the comments that they've made. Now, we have templates for good papers. We all know that a good paper should have an abstract, it should have an introduction, it should review of previous work, or let's say literature review. There's a particular proposed method or solution, and there are some experiments as well. Now, there may not be a particular proposed method, or it depends on what is happening, but definitely there'll be findings in every paper. Definitely there'll be results in every paper. There'll be discussion and conclusion as well. And then we also have reference, depending on the particular field where the person finds himself. But as for findings and results and conclusions and all that, we know that by all means they'll be there. Nowadays, we have supplementary materials too as well, which consists of certain attributes that you cannot add to the paper. So one way is to maybe you do a video about your paper, like a presentation. Let those who will review have that presentation and even speak about your paper. Then you add it as a video, as a supplementary material. You send it out to the reviewers. It's done these days. But some journals even ask for it. So if you have an audio, have a particular video, you have maybe your questionnaire that you submitted, how you analyze your results, maybe the link of that questionnaire, and things which cannot actually go into the paper. But you know that when a reviewer sees it, an editor sees it, or even a reader, once it gets published, sees it, be of importance. I'll put it in your supplementary section, then submit. Once it's submitted, read by those. The abstract is normally written in the past tense. Once the abstract is finished, by standard, it's written in the past tense. So this study was conducted, and we have to look at our tenses well when it comes to abstract as well. So the purpose of an abstract is normally to look at a summary of work and contribution. So the problem background should be in the abstract. The solution that you have, the results and the implementation should also be in your abstract. And then apply methodologies if you have any experiments that you did or any processes that you went through, all be on our abstract as a summary. And the moment the person reads that abstract, he has all of these attributes in, and then it becomes understandable. At the moment, for example, the background is not in the abstract, the problem is not clear in the abstract, the results that you got, the solution you used, they are all not very clear. And that is when it becomes a sort of problem, because the abstract is written in the past because it's something that has already been studied. And we have to always check that. The introduction is written in the present tense normally. So you are presenting facts and then background information on your research topic. It will be in the present. And present tense should even be used if you are looking at maybe speaking about the agent. It can also be used in that case as well. So there are examples there where when you read, for example, Clydemia and Mustium are both plants. You can't say we're both. It doesn't really make sense when you state it that way. So the introduction will be in a present tense. The background is important for introduction. The outline of the research paper is important. Maybe you've seen a problem with X. Problem X is important. And previous work A and B have been studied. A and B have certain weaknesses. So maybe you are proposing D. So maybe there's a traditional, let's say, marketing approach. And the traditional marketing approach has certain problems and weaknesses. You have to be cautious of these problems. But maybe if you make it into an electronic marketing approach using a particular tool or some particular tools, certain aspects will make that better. And you have to prove it in introduction. In that case, everybody says what your paper is about and the contributions that you are trying to make. The outline of your paper too, in terms of the sections that you are writing, they all come in the introduction as well. So contributions are in your introduction. The outline is also in your introduction. And there are some cases whereby you will not even see problem statement in the particular paper, but the problem has been carved in the introduction, and it has been suggested within the introduction how that problem is going to be solved within the paper. It also works out that way. So let's kindly take note. Now, it also looks at differences. Previous work, they may split from several classes. There's a review that is normally done with several sentences as well. Not a very tall review because you have a section for literature review, but at least the gap that you are filling, certain literature that you've read at a certain point in time, and very, very important previous work not be missed. Every time, what is the difference between what you are doing and what is existing already? Always important. So that comparison should always, and that the difference between what you are doing and what is existing, that emphasis always be placed there. It's important to do that. So let's understand that. And the methods are always in the past because you went through a particular methodology, you use certain materials in your methodology. So it is always in the past because they are activities that you've conducted and now you are reporting on. So you can't put them in present tense when it gets to that. So we have certain passive statements which are used there, certain active statements which are also used there as well. So an example is here, maybe if you have in the geographic area selected for the study, 10 random plants were selected. Because if you say are selected, it's as if you are now focusing on your methodology. But it is always assumed that you have done this work already. Now you are now reporting what you've done. It should be in the past tense as well. Now, the findings and results, or if a person will do experiments, is also written in the past tense because the results will be dependent on what you saw during your methodology or during your materials and methods section, that activity. So all of these are grouped in past sentence to as well. So when you look at this example, I won't read all, but the first two words that we have there, we observed that there were no significant statistical differences. So it is something that was observed as a result of the results within the methodology that was applied. So that one too becomes a past tense. And then we have all of these in past tense. Now the verification is important. It is always important to know what results that you have as a result of your research work. So it is important for people to know that you did this analysis or use this particular solution. And as a result of your solution, you came out with these results. And it becomes concise and clear. And somebody look on your results and even replicate, that makes it a good research. Be able to look on your work and say that this work that has been done, I can read on it and then do something about it. It's important to relate, especially with experimentation, what has happened in previous work too as well. So comparison, discussion, drawing conclusions, important. Sometimes you have to verify whether it's strongly scientific or not in terms of the results that you have achieved, whether it can be compared to other results that have been done in the past. And the conclusion, we have sections which may be in the past tense or in the present tense. So if you are mentioning your results in the conclusion, of course, you will mention experimental results or findings in this paper show that. So that is a past tense. But in the present form, for example, symbiotic and mutualistic relationships within species will defend. So that one is more or less also in the present tense. Certain statements like that can come into the conclusion. And whereby your conclusion is based on, especially your results and your methodology, goes on to verify that it should be in the past tense. And the purpose of the references and citations is normally to look at what have you referred to. Have you looked at other people's work, or you are doing something which has already been done? And it happens a lot. Even during PhD study, if you don't take time, you do something that is already there. If you don't read well, PhD candidates who are about to finish and those who have PhD, they all know that if you don't take time, the work that you have done, if you have not read thoroughly and found a gap that you can establish enough evidence that this work hasn't been done before, then you get to a point where you can attend a conference and somebody will point out to you that this work that you are presenting, it has been done before. It doesn't warrant you to get a PhD based on that. And we have cases which happen. But if you refer properly and if you read well and you check on that area well, then you can get enough evidence in your literature that there's enough gap for you to substantiate that this work is innovative enough and contributive enough to achieve that. That is why citations and references are very, very important. Take note of that. Now, the supplementary material, as I mentioned, has multimedia files in terms of animations, movies, and audio. All of these are in. And this makes an article stronger, not only for reviewing, but even for the future. Somebody can access your article. It becomes easier when there are audios and animations and videos in it. And there may be something that the reviewer doesn't understand, but an explanation even from the author through an audio or video, because the author is not there or the researcher is not there, is helpful. That aspect is what we call the supplementary. Every journal has a way in which supplementary information material has to be submitted. So if you write a paper and then you want to submit supplementary material, it is important you look at the journal's research policy, paper policy, before you submit. So the three main steps in publishing, the first one is before you submit, or before submit, you have to choose a journal or a conference. You have journals normally for formal evaluation. You have conferences for presentation and archival. Now, after submission, the most important thing is you communicate with editors and reviewers. Reviewers' comments, as we've seen, revisions have to be done. Communications with editors is important. How you handle rejections also very, very important. So expanding your network in terms of paper referral, follow-up work, communication with readers is all important. So the journal is one choice of publication. The conference is also another choice. In the journal, we have regular papers, we have special issues too as well. The regular papers are there regularly. Special issues are for special cases. And one thing about special issues is publication is faster with them because they have a specific period in which the papers have to get published. So the review is faster. And from what I've seen, if you go into a journal and then it's a good one, the best thing you should do is to go into whether they have a special issue there, that you can consider that. The conference proceedings, like the one we are going to organize soon, Technical Universities Conference, like any other conference, will involve a poster, it will involve oral presentations, plenary sessions, and then keynote from people with expertise. Consider the subject matter all the time when submitting a paper, all the time. Look at the prestige and impact of that particular paper, and then the exposure and visibility. You become very, very visible in Scopus and in Web of Science and all of those other databases and indexes. If you submit the paper there, that is how you become very, very visible. And then because many people like to read from these good journals, that is when they go to sites. So let's take note of that. They are important factors to consider. The timeliness and response of as well as the editorial board. You have an editorial board, take the names. You can even Google through or four of the names. See whether those people are even existing. Because there could be a name there, but the person may not even be existing. But if you Google a particular name and you see that, oh, he's in this university in the US and he's actually there, you try some others, then you know the credibility of that particular editorial board. Now, the editor-in-chief is an important person. They appoint associated editors. They are the CEO of a particular journal. They are in charge. So they manage budgets. They look at operations. If there's a dispute between associate editor and authors, they have to solve it as well. And then they make the final decision. So after reviewers, it goes to the associate editor. The associate editor also has a duty to assign reviewers. And then he has a duty to make sure that there is a bridge between authors and reviewers. So it's like he deals with authors and reviewers in terms of the publication or the paper which has been submitted or the manuscript which has been submitted. But the main person who is in charge is the editor-in-chief. So it moves on like that. Now, if there's acceptance or rejection of a particular paper, the associate editor will make a recommendation, but he's not the one who is going to make the final decision. The final decision is the editor-in-chief. So the editor-in-chief can decide to change what has been done, especially if he looks at the report and feels that what is being done is not right, has that right to be able to change anything. Once the paper has been accepted, then it means that it goes to the journal editor or the publication editor for manuscripting, proofreading, and publication after acceptance. And then after submissions, the reviewer comments, as we've seen, the revisions have to be done, and then you have to communicate with editors too as well. And there are certain things that we have to know in this as well. Building of a network is to do with our visibility and citations too as well. So the first thing is to submit your paper to the EIC. The EIC will be responsible, will look for an associate editor. When you submit a paper, it goes to the editor-in-chief. The editor-in-chief will assign one of the associate editors based on expertise. Look at that paper there. The associate editor will identify 3 or 5 anonymous reviewers, and then the associate editor will have to make a decision based on what the reviewers have stated in their comments, whether minor revision, major revision, or a rejection. And then the final recommendation made to the EIC. So the EIC will have to finally also look at it. But most of the time, the EIC corresponds. It's rare that the EIC will make a different recommendation from what the associate editor is doing, because, I mean, academically and then respectfully, no, these associate editors, they don't just make decisions. No, they make sure that what they have done is right. Publication editor is also there to make sure that the paper gets published. And then there'll be a communication between the publication editor and then the author. So the author deals with the EIC, deals with the associate editor, then deals with reviewers. It goes back to the associate editor, and then once it gets accepted, the same author will have to deal with the publication editor or the journal editor. So the reviewers are experts. I've already mentioned it. And every typical reviewer would have published some of these papers to understand what goes into a good paper, be able to review. Because if you don't know what goes into a good paper, it will be difficult for you to review thoroughly and give good comments for corrections to be done. There shouldn't be a case where the author is directly linked. For example, if you submit your paper somewhere and it's in the name of ATU, nobody here should be allowed to review that particular paper because there will be conflict of interest. Not all the time anyway, but so long as it's the same affiliation, there's that assumption that there's that conflict of interest. So it's not something which is allowed within the research fraternity in terms of review. And there are people that should be easy to reach. Reviewers, the associate editor should be able to reach them easily without any problem. Now, we should all understand that most papers, 70%, about greater than 70% are rejected in top reputable journals. No two ways about that. You can't get a top journal which is accepting papers so much because, as I stated earlier, we have got so many good papers there. So unless they are convinced so much, they don't accept. There's no feeling of shame or losing face because of paper rejection. It is very, very normal in academia to have a rejection. The rejection even makes us better, be able to make corrections and resubmit in cases where that journal doesn't want to see the paper again. We have to thank the associate editor and reviewers for their dedication. And then if you have to withdraw, you withdraw from that particular journal, and then you can make corrections and then resubmit. Now, the good thing is the correction that you make will make the paper better, especially if the comments from the reviewers are good. And once that is done, then it becomes better. So you have to display a class and style, you walk away amicably, and then there won't be any problem whatsoever. Okay. Now, after the review process, issues about paying attention to others' work, logistics, and then the paper referrals. You have to check how your paper is doing. That is why you have to join Google Scholar, you have to join other databases to see whether your paper is being read. There are certain situations where those who read, they communicate with you. They maybe want access to your data set for something, or they want to verify why you said something in a particular paper. Not. There shouldn't be a case whereby you are trying to hide or something like that. No, you have to be able to expand your network in that regard. So, in conclusion, good research and writing a good paper is essential in academia. We all know that it's very, very important. Solid content is very important to get a paper accepted in a top journal. Very, very important. If the content is not solid, it becomes difficult to get it. then you should be able to communicate effectively with the right skills, the EIC, associate editor, and reviewers. And with the reviewers, we've seen an example that I've shown or displayed. It's important. Quality is more important than quantity. You have to understand why publish. You have 5 papers which are in top journals. It's better than having 15 which are predatory. That is a clear issue. So if you have even 5 which are in top, then it's also better. When you look at our promotion criteria, realize that the number of papers that they are looking for, they are not in the 15s and 20s and 25s. So they are in 8s and some are in 6. About the 6, if you have 6 and you have even a maximum of 6 or 8, and they are all top quality, there's no problem. Get your promotion without any headache. So it's better than having 15 or 20, and majority of them are not in top journals. That is how you build and expand your work on network of influence. So as Dean stated, let's always look at these reputable publishers. We have Australian Business Dean's Council. Some of these are, for example, Biomed Central may not be related to business, faculty of business, I don't think so, but the Australian Business Dean's Council as a publisher is important. Emerald Publishing, very important. Elsevier, also very important. The Harvard University Press, all of these are recognized publishers. IGI Global, all of them. We have the IEEE, all of engineering. Then in the science publishers. So when you look on this, Emerald is good for the Faculty of Business. We have in the science publishers, they are business journals within these publishers. Elsevier to the same. And then Hindawi to the same. IGI Global to the same. So why not look at these publishers when you are trying to publish and see whether you get a paper there? And it's not that you can't do it. Believe me, there are some papers which go into predatory journals, and later on, when you realize the mistake that you've done, you cannot remove those papers from there, but they could have gone into these publishers if you were in the known at that time. Data research, difficult to publish in, very, very difficult. They don't accept papers anyhow. So if you look at these publishers and you target them, it means that you are recognizing reputable publishers. Your name is being promoted in terms of reputation of publications, and then that of ATU to in terms of ranking increase, that of Faculty of Business to become better. So let's always look at that. We also have the indexes or all of these publishers. Taylor and Francis Wiley was one Springer. Obviously, you have to verify whether these publishers have journals that are related to your area within the Faculty of Business. So we have marketing, we have accounting and finance. In Taylor and Francis, is there a particular journal there that is related to marketing, that is related to accounting and finance, and they are there? But from where I sit, I know that some of you have published there. So they are there in Springer 2, they are there, Sage, and all of that, they are all there. Then we look at our indexes too. So Arts and Humanities Citation Index for your area. The immediate sources as well. We have Scopus, we have Web of Science, Clarivate Analytics. So all the publishers that we've seen earlier, most of them are indexed by one of these, or at least 2 or 3 of them. So once you focus on a particular publisher that is reputable enough, it is also going to be in line with that particular indexing as well. So then we have the Social Sciences Citation Index too, which is also focused on Faculty of Business. So in the Faculty of Business, the Arts and Humanities Citation Index, because we are not a science faculty, not so much. So this one, Arts and Humanities Citation Index, Emerging Sources Citation Index as well, Web of Science, Scopus, and then Social Sciences Citation Index. They are all important indexes for your faculty. All right. So that ends my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer. All right. Moderator, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nanaya Osabre, for your insightful, thorough, and well-articulated presentation. I think we've learned so much from you, and everybody will understand. Everybody will agree with me that from my introduction, I said a very hard-working director. Thank you so much.
You're welcome there. Thank you too. Thank you.
You were just fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from any of us, please? Maybe one or two questions.
Prof, Doc.
Yes, sir.
There was a question in the chat. Let me read out to you. It came from one of our students.
Okay, okay.
Bring to the attention of Dr. Sabre that the template is silent on where to put questionnaires as appendix. Secondly, in his slides, he mentions that subheadings should be in cases. However, the template suggests the other way around. So please, you should have a look at it. You should please look at it.
Okay, so to answer that question, if I can just answer it here quickly, is normally we put our appendix after the references. So what we'll do is we'll update the template and then put appendix after the references so that they can be sure about where to put an appendix in case of the future. So we'll do that. And then the issue about the cases, okay, I'll check it and see. There are certain updates that we are doing, very, very minimal updates for the current final year student. So thank you very much, Dr. Klu. We'll attend to it for that student.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Any more questions, please?
Yeah, those are there.
Yes, Dean.
Yes. In his presentation, somewhere along the lines on methodology, he spoke of passive. But I had a reviewer who was saying that there's the need to rather be active, like saying that we selected, I selected, we adopted. That it makes you immersed. And I see some quality papers to that adopts. And that the passive approach does not show you showing active ownership of the article. I just want him to comment on that.
Okay, you are right. Sometimes we have two perspectives about the passive and the active. But the most important thing in terms of the past sentence is, you see that you mentioned we adopted, not we adopt. So if you use we adopted as you have mentioned, it's clear and fine without any problem. The issue is because the work has been done, you make sure that once you are writing it, it is in the past tense, and that will be fine. There's no issue about that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. But we are grateful for your generous presentation, always bringing the facts to us.
Yeah. I'm also grateful for the audience for listening. Grateful.
Thank you.
Now, Prof, let me ask a question.
Yes, Doc.
You know, you were talking earlier in terms of collaboration, where maybe a marketing might collaborate with someone in the computer sciences.
Yes.
Now, my worry is, will it be a situation where the topic should fit into the context of both sides?
Yes.
From my understanding, you know, when we had one of these sessions, Prof. Amebi was saying, if as a marketer, or maybe being my research area being more of marketing, if I'm applying to maybe the associate professor level or professorial status, there's the need to see that most of your papers fall within your specialty.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at how best do I look at this collaboration, because I'm interested in that.
Okay.
Can you throw some light on that?
Yeah, I will. So if you are in marketing and then, for example, your interest falls within, or you are looking at areas of combining ICT and marketing, that has been defined as your research interest. Maybe you are working on electronic marketing, but in order to work on it well, you may need an expertise of ICT within your paper or within your research to be able to do it well. So it is expected that because you are in that particular area, some amount of papers that you write will be related, maybe e-marketing, electronic marketing, or marketing within ICT or something like that. Okay. So that skews you towards that particular area. And then it is understood that that is where you're focusing on. But whereby maybe you have only one of that and the other ones are becoming different, and the focus of your research interest or what you research in towards becoming an associate professor becomes a bit questionable. So you can work on that easily, but it means that you have more articles there so that we know that you are stronger in that area. And that is why you are becoming a professor in that particular area.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. I also think somebody has raised his hand. I can't. Let me see whether we can identify the name.
I see Isaac Tompo and Abiu Christopher. I don't know whether we should unmute them.
Abiu Christopher.
Yeah, they are our students.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Is talking, but we can't hear him.
So you can type it. Maybe we can look at what he's typing.
Christopher, type in your question, okay? Isaac. Okay. Also, Doc. Isaac, you can talk.
Okay, Doc. Thank you very much for the presentation.
All right.
Please, the problem with the template, I don't know whether most of our supervisors are aware, because I remember I followed the template that was given to us by our HOD, but when it got to our supervisor or my supervisor, he said, yes, follow. Hello?
Yeah, we are listening.
Yeah,
Christopher, don't talk. Christopher, keep quiet. Let Isaac finish.
He said I should reduce the font sizes, all the font sizes to size 12. So I did it and I sent it to the mail that was given to us, and it was rejected. And because of that, it has really delayed the whole process until recently that I got to know that this is the format that we have to use. So I'm suggesting that all lecturers and supervisors should be given the format to follow, so that if a student submits his or her project and it doesn't follow the format, they can quickly work on it. Secondly, I also suggest that we should be given a template that guide us when it comes to our research. For example, I had a discussion with a different student from a different institution. He's from Valley View University. The final year students were given a format to follow, like a statement of problem, how you go about it. So it's like a guidelines to the research you are doing. So okay. I'm also suggesting that we should also be given the guidelines on how to go about our project work as well. Thank you very much.
All right, those are very good suggestions. I think the guideline, we are working on it. We are almost done with that. So this academic year, we'll send it out to faculties so that students will also have access to it. And then the format, you are right. It seems not all lecturers are really aware about it, and sometimes they want it to be different and all that. But I think what is going to happen is we are going to create more awareness through HODs and then deans and then academic staff, so that it's not only the students who have the format, but the lecturers who have it, and everybody will be on one page. So thank you very much for your suggestion. It's good. We'll work on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Sabri.
All right.
I think we'll end the questions here. If anybody has any other question, please put them in writing. Maybe we can later attend to it. Thank you very much for your questions, and thank you very much, Doctor, for your beautiful answers. Now we move on to our next presenter, and that will be in the person of Dr. Florence Plocky, who is our university librarian, a young woman who always wears smiles on her face, very hardworking and meticulous. And she's going to present to us on a topic, information literacy for final year students and BTech. Welcome to the floor, Dr. Plocky. Or if I get it right, is the presentation going to be done by Donos W. Boadi?
Yes, Miss Abby is standing in for him, for Dr. Plocky.
Nice one. Nice one. Okay, thank you very much, Donos. And now we will listen to Donos W. Boadi, who is standing for Dr. Florence Plocky, the A2 librarian. Donos, the floor is for you now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doc. Thank you. My name is Donos Boadi. I'll be standing in for Dr. Plocky. We have just listened to the presentation from Dr. Sabri and talked about the components of a good paper. Now we are ready to write. And we know that critical to writing a good paper is having access to the right kind of materials, information materials. And it so happens that some of the faculty members and even students don't know that ATU library have materials that will suffice would help them to be able to do their project work and their research work. And that is why today we are looking at assessing ATU library electronic databases to look at how you can take advantage of the resources that we have to be able to do a good research. And so electronic database, when we talk about electronic database, what are we referring to? It's just a collection of professional peer-reviewed journal articles. So just a collection of, which is in the electronic format. It's a computer-based collection of these materials. So databases are just journals, articles that have been written in journals, and those journals collected together to form a database. It's a platform created where different journals have been put on board to give access to researchers to be able to use such information. Now, a typical database will enable access to e-journals and e-books. And e-journals, as we know, are electronic periodicals that contain scholarly articles. And these e-journals or the databases give different levels of access. And so there are those that are free or open access, and there are those that are subscription based. And then we have also the pay-per-view. Because of the cost of these databases, a lot of institutions are not able to buy them. In Ghana here, if any institution is to go solo and buy them, maybe if only a few will be able to have access to them. And so in Ghana, we have the CALIC, which is the Consortium of Academic and Research Libraries in Ghana, where all the tertiary institutions have come together to pool resources to be able to buy these databases and then give access to us. So based on how much you contribute to the consortium, you are given a certain level of access. And so ATU, we have access to some of these databases. And the databases that we are able to use them. So students, faculty, and our patrons can have access to them both online and offline. The online and the offline, when we get there, we will see how you can access them online and then offline. Now, what are the advantages of using these databases? Now, we know that the world is full of information, and every second, the amount of information that is churned out is so much that it becomes even overwhelming for researchers to be able to sift through and get to the right kind of information. But databases, because it's professional, it's peer-reviewed, we can verify the authenticity of the information that we are getting. It becomes a good source of information for researchers. And so rather than Google and go through all the junk that is coming, going straight to the databases is a good way to have the right kind of information so that you get the right content, good content for your work. So we know that the advantage of using a database is provides authentic, validated information for users. It also enables access to large amounts of data because you have a collection of different sources. You can have access to so many materials at a go. And it also allows users to easily query, search, filter, and retrieve required data. Another advantage is that it allows sharing of information with other software applications. So there are inbuilt or embedded programs that you can use to share information as well as also get access to other platforms as well. It allows for multiple users to read, download, print, or share full text information. And then it provides time-saving features so that you can even filter your search according to relevance. You can filter your search in different ways that will make it easier for you to know get the right information that you need without necessarily having to read everything or go through all the retrieved information that comes. And then it's also cost saving for users as well, institutions that subscribe to them. Now, ATU list of databases that we have. I can say that a lot of people may not know that we have all these databases in our system. So these are the list of databases that we subscribe to. Those on the left are those that are the paid for ones that we are subscribed to. And by virtue of our membership with CALIC, we have access to these other ones the ones in the middle and to the far right, yeah, we have access to them. But these are the ones that we pay, and then when you pay for them, you are enabled as all these other ones that are also free access. And so Sage is there, Sage Research Methods is there, Emerald, EBSCO, Purdue Reference, Cambridge, Ellen Francis, Wiley, Blackwell, IEEE. These are all databases that we have. We have them or project needs. How do you gain access to these databases? So an easy approach is to go to the university homepage. When you go to the university homepage, you see the tabs at the top here, where the cursor is moving. You see the tabs at the top here. You have the library there, the arrow pointing to the library. When you click on the library, there's a drop down. This is a drop down that comes. You see library, off-campus e-resources, on-campus e-resources, ATU cat, which is the ATU catalog, and then the ebooks. Now, as we are talking of databases, we are referring to these two off-campus e-resources and then the on-campus e-resources. So you click on any of them, one for off-campus. The off-campus, we use it when we are not on the school's network. So if you are outside of the campus, you can use the off-campus to give you access. And then if you are on campus, it enables automatic access to on-campus e-resources. Even on campus, you can still use the off-campus
Okay, we have 5 minutes to go, so maybe I want you to leave a message for our first about your DH by DH clothing and also about the awake experience with Diamond Hamilton coming up. Yeah. Thank you for allowing.
Another way to access the library's e-resource is to also type atu.edu.gh/library/ it will take you straight to the e-resources that we have. Now, when you get to the e-resource, this is the on-campus interface. The on-campus interface. When you get to this interface, you can click on any of the two here, off-campus or on-campus. That is when you go to the page. Any of them, when you click on the on-campus, this is the first side, is the interface for the on-campus. Now, once you're on the school's network and you go there, it takes you straight to the databases. And so you can just start using the database. But when you're off campus, you have to key in a username and a password. And so for staff, we have the ATU staff. One word and all in caps, ATU staff. And then the password is ATU_staff, also caps, ATU_staff. So when you're off campus and you use these login credentials, it will take you to the databases and you can still use it from home. Because of a few things, sometimes the network is not very stable. On campus, sometimes you can use the on campus whilst on campus and you may not get access to some of the databases. You can still switch to the off campus whilst on campus and use it and you get access. So that is one trick. Sometimes some of the lecturers prompt us on the databases when they are not getting access, and we tell them you can also use the off campus whilst on campus and it will work. Now, when you go to the platform, the interface for the e-resources, you will see that one side we have the names of all the URLs for all the databases on the left side, and the description of those databases on the right. It is always good to read the description because it will tell you which subject areas it covers. So when you see the first one, which is Sage Publications, you see that it covers subject areas, business, humanities, social sciences. We have also science, technology, and medicine. Sometimes it's not clear-cut because a lot of the databases are now also veering into other areas because they want to capture the market. And so they are adding on subject areas that they were initially not inclined to taking papers in. But now they are doing that because they want to capture the market. But they have a strong area. And so Sage, for instance, you see that their strong areas are the business, humanities, and the social sciences. And so when you read the description, you can tell that this is more of my area. And so let me look for materials in this particular area. So you look for the description, you read the description, and then you choose the databases that you would want to access. Now, when you click on the URL, it will take you straight to the database. And when you get to the database, you will have an interface that will come up where you search. You will get to the search part of it where you go through how to search. Now, these are some of the major resources for the School of Business. So the School of Business, these are resources that you can take advantage of so that you wouldn't have to go through all the databases there to be able to know which one fits your subject area. So EBSCO for instance, is more tailored towards the humanities and social sciences. Emerald, very strong in business. JSTOR is there. Project News, Taylor and Francis, University of Chicago Press. We have Sage Publication and Oxford Journals. So these are some of the databases that those in the School of Business can take advantage of. Now, we move to how to search ATU school databases. ATU school databases. So we'll look at a general approach to searching the databases. When you click on any of the databases, the best thing to do is to first look at their help button. There's a help button at the top. When you go to the help button, it gives you a process, a step-by-step approach of how to use that particular database. When you read that information there, it will help you to be able to do a good search in that particular database. But generally, there's a way to go about searching databases, which I would quickly go through. Because of time, I don't have 25 minutes, so I'll quickly go through and then we would end it there. The first approach is to define your information need. Now, you must know exactly what you want. A lot of the times, have an idea of what you want to do, but we are not able to narrow it down to a specific need or a specific information. So the searching becomes very difficult for us. We search, and the information that we retrieve are mostly junk because we are not able to narrow our information need to the particular one. So there's a way you have to go about narrowing your information need to be able to come to the specific information that you need to search. Then when you have narrowed the information to a specific need, then you have to choose which key terms you would use. You have to select which key terms you use. So you look at which terms aptly describes what it is that you want to do. So the key terms, once you have the key terms, you are going to use the key terms to search. When you have the key terms, you look at which other ways those key terms are written, and then what other synonyms you can use for those key terms, so that you use all those synonyms in your search. Then now you decide on which sources to use. As I've already given some of the databases that are more inclined to the business field. And so deciding on which database to use now becomes a bit easy. You know the databases. So you go straight to those databases. And then you find out how the search tool functions. Like I said, in the help session, you can tell how it functions. So almost all the databases use the Boolean operators. Because of time, we can't go through what the Boolean operators is and how to use it. But you know the and, the or, and the not, how to use those ones. But there are some that allow for, in every database, you have the basic search function and then the advanced search. The basic search functions allows for phrase searches. So you can type in a phrase and it will give you what you want. But advanced, you would have to use the Boolean operators and so many other features such as filtering by relevance, filtering by alter, filtering by whatever functions the particular database has. So when you read from the help tool, it will give you what the functions the database uses. Then when you have been able to tell, you are aware of what the functions are, you can now key in your key terms using the Boolean tools and for synonyms. All for synonyms. So if maybe you are talking about an example, I can give an example, like you are looking for information on pest control in maize cropping. For pest control, you can use synonyms like insect control, pest management, pest regulation. When it comes to maize cropping, you have synonyms like maize culture, intermediate planting. So once you have these key terms, you can use this. You can use the first one, insert control. And then the next search, you use pest management. You are not getting what you want. You can use insert control or pest management. That goes for the synonyms. And then when you're combining two concepts, you use the and. When you're using the synonyms, use the or. When you're combining two concepts, then you use the and. The not is if you don't want it to return items, certain items that you don't want the search to return, you exclude them. So the not is for exclusion. So you exclude them. Then after you've run your search, you review the items that it has retrieved. You think that it covers the area or the subject matter or the things that you actually want? Does it cover it? If it doesn't cover, you have to refine your search. And when refining your search, you have to look for more synonyms. You have to look for new databases to use. You have to look for what other key terms can describe your work that you want to, what you want to find. And so when you do that, you are likely to get the information that you want for your research. And so these are the ways that you can use to search for information using the database. There's also the ebooks that we have using the Zenodo platform. You can, when you go to the library page, you see the section where we have the library, e-resources, off-campus, on-campus, ATU part. We also have the ebooks. When you click on that, it will take you to the Zenodo platform. And the Zenodo platform is a community of different communities where you have materials. And so once you join that community, you have access to the materials of other communities as well. So there are a number of ebooks available there. So when you go to Zenodo, you search for anything that you want. You may or may not get it, but because you have a lot of materials there, you can also check from there if you can get the material that you want. But if you are not getting, you can also contact the library, and the library will also help you to see how best we can get you the information that you want for your research. Yes, and the OPAC is also is a listing of our physical books in the library. So if you want any material in the library, you can even search from where you are in your office. When you search through the OPAC, the interface, once you go to the library and go to the OPAC, you search on the interface. When you see the book in the library, you can place a request for it. And then the library will put a hold on that book and will get it for you. And once you do this for you, it becomes easier to also concentrate on your research, and you will get the information for you. So this is all about how you can access our e-resources. The next time we will look at how to evaluate resources that we have. Because you are looking at the e-resources, these are authentic information. But when you are using other platforms like internet and the Google search and all that, there is a way you have to evaluate the resources to be able to know that what you've gotten is authentic or it isn't. And so the next session, when we have the opportunity, so when in subsequent editions, we'll also look at how to evaluate. Now, just by way of information, IGI Global is also now on in our database list, but it was not in the list that I gave. So the list is updated now. IGI Global is part of the databases that now we have for ATU Library. So thank you very much, Dr. Moderator. I'll end my presentation here.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Doswadi. We like your presentation. I think you did very well. You've done a good job for your boss, Dr. Proki. I think you'll be so much happy for hearing that you did such a good job with us. Thank you very much for your excellent presentation. Now we'll move on to our next presenter, who will be presenting to us on the topic, the relationship between job components, neighborhood workability, and African academics' physical activity, a post-COVID-19 context. It's a recent research paper he published, and we'd like to share his findings with us. in the person of Mr. Frank Frempon Opuni, Senior Lecturer with the Marketing Department. He is a lover of research, as I know, and he has a lot of research work in his name. So, Opuni, it's time for you to present to us on your topic, the relationship between job components, neighborhood workability, and African academics physical activity in post-COVID-19 context. Let me remind you that you have 20 minutes within which to present your document. Thank you very much. Hello, Mr. Opuni with us?
Yeah, Docs, give me some few minutes. Just kind of went off small. I came back.
Okay.
Having some few problems with my file, but someone.
Should we skip you and move to the next presenter so that when you are ready, you come back to us, please? Hello, Mr. Opuni.
Hello.
Can you hear me, please?
Yeah, some few minutes. My system is quite slow. Just 1 minute or so. I think.
I'm just asking, should we skip you for now and then we move to the next presenter? So when you are ready, you join us.
All right, no problem.
Okay, fine. Please do we have Professor Winfo in the house?
I'm around.
Okay, now, colleagues, let me present to you and let me introduce to you Professor Ernest Christian Winfo, who is an associate professor with Accounting and Finance Department. He's also the Dean for the Directorate of International Programs and Institutional Cooperation. He's going to present to us on the topic, Enhancing Graduate Employability Skills, Lecturing versus Coaching. Mr. Winfo, your audience are ready to listen to you. Thank you very much. You've muted, Professor Winfo, please, you've muted your
okay,
microphone.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I'm sure you can see my screen. Please, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes, we can see it. We can see your screen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And as introduced, my topic is on enhancing graduate employability skills, lecturing versus coaching. And it's presented by myself from Accounting and Finance Department. And briefly, I'm going to do some statistics on unemployment and how do we address the problem of unemployment. Then we look at some teaching philosophies as well. Then come with the conclusion. We all witnessed about 3 months ago when the military wanted to recruit the number of people that trooped to LWAC and other places just to get employed. Unemployment and joblessness rate are essential indices of an economy's health. Unemployment is a pressing economic issue or problem, and not for only Ghana, but for Africa and the world at large. It poses a severe threat, and now that we are even having instability in West Africa, makes it more dangerous, and that attention needs to be placed on this particular canker. If we look at the statistics in Ghana, every year it is estimated about 230,000 youth graduates who go or come to the labor market. And surprisingly, out of these 230,000, only 2% of them get up some job. And out of the 2%, 50% of them find themselves unemployed. Some will be doing jobs that they are employed, but they don't like it. So immediately the military announced the picture, those you see, most of them are doing 1 or 2 jobs. Some of them are security, private security, but they don't like it and refer to them as unemployed. So immediately opportunity comes, they all jump and they want to get. So 98% left to struggle in the informal sector. 98%. So that is very alarming. And if you look at the number of students that is coming out each year, and only 2% can be absorbed, then it's really a matter of concern. This is a clear indication of an unhealthy economy. And COVID has also made this situation worse. Those who have managed, the 2% that managed to find themselves jobs, are being laid off. So they are coming to join the unemployment. Market is shrinking, so they are not employing more people. So even the 2% that get employed, the 2% is going to drop to, let's say, 1%, which makes this situation serious. But what we need to ask ourselves, the transition of our youth to world of work is through the educational system. So that is where my interest is. So if the youth, most of them are going to be transformed through the educational system so that they can go to the world of work and be employed, then there is the need for us to look at our educational system very well. Tertiary education is failing the youth. Majority of students, they finish school, they don't get jobs. We are failing the youth. And I believe we need to go outside the box to be able to be successful. What makes the situation more helpless is the bureaucratic nature of our educational system. To evolve quickly with current trends to address societal issues is very, very difficult. Sometimes the academia will see the problems, but the bureaucratic system, by the time we pass through the bureaucratic system to correct the need, that problem is no more a problem, a different problem has come. So we are always behind the problem. For us to be able to solve this in the academia, we need to go outside the box. How do we address the problem? The question I ask, how do we teach our students? Students learn best when they feel welcome, comfortable, and safe. teaching and education are not one size fits all. We have some students who are very good, some students who like reading, some students who demonstrate, they'll see. So we have different type of students that come. They are all not equal. But what type of teaching do we give them? A teaching methodology that fits all. We design it, whether it fits you or it doesn't fit you, the student will have to force and learn. There was a student who came to me, the parents. They came and they said, the parent told me the child is abandoning the program. Then I called the parent and I told the parent that you let me see the students. The student came and I said, why are you not interested in the program again? He said, what he was expecting to come and learn is not what you are giving him. Then I asked him, what is he expecting us to give him? What I realized, the long short, to cut the long story short, was that this guy wants more practical things. He wants to be solving issues, problems that confront us. But he realized what you are giving him are mostly abstract problems and abstract things. The long and short, this guy managed to finish with counseling, and now he's into his own business. So we need to look at the teaching method. So if we need to look at the teaching method, then we need to look at teaching philosophy. And look at teaching philosophy, there are three main areas that we need to cover: content knowledge, technological knowledge, and self-knowledge. So whatever teaching methodology that you are using, you ask yourself whether you are able to address these things very well. Mostly we know when we come to the tertiary, what we use mostly, which is predominantly, is lecturing. Yes, some may be doing coaching, but I don't think the coaching is really going on. Looking at the course structure and course content, I wonder how the coaching can be effective in our institution. So we look at lecturing, and you see lecturing is the system that fits all. It's very easy to adopt, not expensive, so we look at it. But if you look at the limitations, you realize that lecturing is meant for the entire group. You come out with a system, you come out with a methodology, and you use it to fit the entire group. But we've noticed that we are all not the same. We are all not the same. So at the end of the day, you teach, some students can get A+, get whatever it is, but they will go out there and they will not fit into the system. Because the methodology you are using does not fit them, it will cause them to even involve themselves in examination or practice. If you look at the number of students we turn out for poor academic performance, it points to the fact that the teaching methodology is not working. It points to the fact that these students will go out there and become unemployed. But when we look at these two children, they have no literature. Let it play. Yeah, these children, we've all experienced this, and we've seen children play with mobile phones, and they can go to where the games are and play with the games. They handle the phones very well, they know how to use it, but they have not been taken through any theoretical know-how about the phone. Nobody has taught them anything but their mother or father coaching them. And these children tend to be very, very good in using their mother's phone or their father's phone. It is through coaching. It helps develop employability skills. Because when we talk about going out there to work, is going there to exhibit your talent, your skills. Do it, not write it. But if you look at our teaching, we just give them the theoretical thinking, but they go out there, demonstrate, it becomes another issue. So realize that human beings by nature, we are supposed to go by what we see or what we play with. We become very efficient, and we can be able to do this very well by coaching. Somebody directing you and then allowing you to explore. Just coaching, not teaching, not lecturing. When we are able to do this coaching and lecturing, it improves productivity, it increases confidence, and it's a highly personalized and individualized well-being intervention. So coaching as a method of imparting knowledge, you will be in the position to address individual differences of your students. So you are not coming out with something that fits all, but something that is specific to individual students. And we coach them through it. To conclude, I will just give you this video. I believe most of us have also witnessed this gentleman. Yes, he just completed JHS. He just completed JHS. And you can all bear me out that JHS curriculum or syllabus will not end up with this guy coming up with this motto. He was able to do this all by coaching. How many tertiary students can do this? It is not the teaching, it is coaching. I will continue by showing my appreciation to certain lecturers who are also supporting in this direction. Our chairman, Dr. Adai, is also helping in this direction. Dr. Oklu is also helping in this direction. Mr. Franco Puni is also helping in this direction. And our able Dr. Sabre also is helping in this direction. I thank them so much. This paper I presented is a paper we are working on, which we have not come to a conclusion. But from the two videos that we watched and looking at teaching philosophy, it points out that for us to be able to solve the unemployment problems, for us to make our graduates employable, then the teaching method or skill that we have adopted, which we always teach, tell them exactly what they do, will not help us. We should move from there, allow our students to explore. It is very difficult to go outside the syllabus, but I believe that is why we have continuous assessment. We could explore ways and make our students more employable than just passing with good grace. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Prof. We're grateful for your presentation. I think you did so well in your presentation. You gave us a very comprehensive presentation. Thanks so much. Your data and your graphics were just beautiful and they were very educative. I was personally touched when you mentioned that we should coach and lecture and provide skills for these our teaming youth, because the job is simply not out there. So that if you're able to coach them and equip them with employable skills, I think they will be able to find something to do by themselves. Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
I'll now move on to our next presenter, if ready. Do we have Mr. Opuni in our midst? Hello, Mr. Opuni.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, are you ready now?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
You can unshare,
Okay.
so I'll share my screen.
Our colleagues, I will therefore call Mr. Frank Opuni, who is a senior lecturer with the Department of Marketing, who is presenting to us a topic, the relationship between job components, neighborhood workability, and African academics physical activity, a post-COVID-19 context. A paper it has been published, and that he wants to share his findings with us. Thank you, Mr. Opuni. Now the floor is yours.
Thanks to you. I hope you can see my screen now.
Yes, we can see it.
All right, so let me try to expand it. Good afternoon to you all, colleagues. My name is Mr. Frank Opuni from the Marketing Department. I want to thank the Director for DRIPTT, all my colleague lecturers, as well as students for this opportunity. Thanks for the platform to communicate the findings from this particular research. The title, as Doctor said, is a relationship between job components, neighborhood workability, and African academics physical activity, a post-COVID-19 context. This paper has been published in the journal Health Promotion International, published by the Oxford University Press. And the journal is a Q2 journal, and then it can be found in Scopus and then Clarivate Analytics Web of Science, to be precise. All right, so this is a summary of the work, okay, the abstract. So the study assessed the moderating role of neighborhood workability in the relationship between our core job components, which include on-site teaching, online teaching, research, and student assessments, and physical activity amongst academics. So the core relationship here is about job components and physical activity, okay, among academics. And the study adopted a cross-sectional design so that we gathered data for a particular period. I mean, it was during the COVID-19 period, the latter part of 2020. And we utilized an online survey, and we did it by hosting the data on Google Forms, right? By gathering data through Google Forms. So the participants who volunteered to give information were from Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, and Tanzania, a total of about 2,064 surveys. And we used a particular tool called sensitivity analysis to help us arrive at conclusions which were quite empirical. Okay, and I think I'll give some attention to it as we get along. Now, having controlled for the ultimate covariates, which were gender, education, and income, the findings were that physical activity positively correlated with job components, especially for the research work. However, it's negatively correlated with student assessment, okay? And this was an interesting finding, all right? And the moderating aspect, which was neighborhood workability, increased the positive relationship between research work and physical activity. On the other hand, it reduced the negative relationship between student assessment and physical activity. These relationships and then findings, I hope, will come clear as we get along. Right, so come along with me and let's see how you can enjoy this particular research. But this research touches on my heart, especially for as academics, one area that I do publishing is in social marketing. In social marketing is about applying the marketing techniques and other techniques from other fields in order to see how we can communicate better to the society at large, okay, not specifically at profits. And in fact, this tool has been used by the UN in terms of changing negative behaviors in society. For example, drug addiction, teenage pregnancy, etc. So we use marketing techniques in order to engender change in society. And that's the area that I like to publish with some of my colleagues too. Now, the background to the research. Empirical studies have indicated that academics generally spend up to 75% of their working day in sedentary behavior. Okay, sorry for that spelling mishap. So if you should put together the totality of our work each day, about 75%, we are either sitting down or we are just static, or we are, in fact, we don't engage in enough physical activity. Assuming you are marking scripts, most of the time you'll be sitting down. Okay, when you are doing research, and let's say you are doing more of desk research, but you are not going out there as we normally find ourselves, that is sedentary behavior. And this kind of behavior, studies have shown to be associated with how to call non-infectious diseases like diabetes and heart-related issues, hypertension, etc. And there is enough evidence in the literature. Now, before even the onset of COVID-19, academics were found to be, on average, having most of their time in sedentary behavior. With the onset of COVID-19, social activity was kind of curtailed, especially during the lockdowns. And so when we conducted this research, we wanted to see the impact of the nature of our job description on physical activity, especially with the advent of COVID-19. Within the literature, a good number of studies, a plethora of studies have reported a significant decline in physical activity and exercise as a result of COVID-19, okay? And coupled with the social distancing measures. In fact, at the time, there was clear evidence that physical activity had dropped, but most of the time we're not going out, we're not engaging in social activities. Now, the advent of COVID-19 also had some ramifications in terms of academics' core job components. Our core job components are one, on-site teaching, that's the normal classroom teaching that we do. Then we also have online teaching, we also have research, and we also engage in student assessments, okay? We also have, let's talk a little bit about physical activity, okay? A major determinant of physical activity is neighborhood walkability. And this is defined as the extent to which the built environmental factors, for example, services, crosswalks, sanitation, peace, support physical activity. What we're saying here is that if we want to engage in physical activity, for example, walking, running, jogging, sightseeing, moving around the neighborhood, engaging in some aerobics, playing soccer, the neighborhood should be designed in such a way that it can facilitate such activities. In other words, if we would want to walk around, ride on your bicycle in the community, but then the community has not been designed this way, then of course, physical activity will be hampered, okay? And that is why we're trying to look at how neighborhood walkability can moderate the relationship between job components as well as physical activity or end physical activity. At any given point in time, neighborhood walkability is a resource for keeping active. And the research has shown that if a neighborhood is walkable, let's say if ATU is walkable, then of course that will engender physical activities, okay? But if it is not, then it means we don't have the opportunity to walk around or to ride a bicycle around. So it means that neighborhoods of academics can attenuate physical inactivity in an emerging culture of social distance. So if you have a neighborhood and then it is not walkable, then of course physical activity will be affected. Based on this background, the main aim of the study was to assess the relationship between academics' core job components and fiscal activity. And then also to look at the moderating role of neighborhood workability in this relationship. Okay. So the assumption or the kind of hypothesis that we are deriving is that job components have an association or a relationship with fiscal activity. Okay. But then this relationship is moderated. In other words, we'll be testing the strength of the relationship or otherwise through neighborhood workability. Okay. The significance of the study is quite obvious. By assessing these relationships, universities and employers would understand how key academic tasks correlate with fiscal activity during the pandemic and even post-pandemic. The nature of our work, that we are always in a sedentary mood. We are sitting by our laptops. We are kind of marking. Okay, we are doing this research. Findings from the study would help management to find ways by which researchers can become more active. Is that okay? Or engage in more fiscal activity in order to promote well-being amongst academics all over the world. This understanding clearly will also lead to further research. Now, this research was basically a correlational study done in terms of a particular period. It was cross-sectional, but the findings should inform longitudinal or more experimental studies, which we hope to pursue in a later time. The import of the moderate analysis is also very important, especially if we can think about how neighborhood workability can improve fiscal activity amongst academics. So I have coined this conceptual framework. It was a simple conceptual framework. Now, the main independent variable is job components. And job components consist of on-site teaching, online teaching, research, and then students' assessment. So these were the main subcomponents of the construct job components. And we are looking at how job components will associate or relate with fiscal activity. Okay. But then this relationship will be moderated by neighborhood workability. So how can neighborhood workability strengthen the association between job components and fiscal activity? Or is it going to weaken it? The results of the study will help us. You also have on this far left side what we call the covariates or the confounding variables. Basically in research and for the learning of our students, if we are saying job components related to fiscal activity, it could possibly be that there are some other hidden or confounding factors which are leading to increase in fiscal activity, but not necessarily job components. So we need to control for these factors. We need to control the covariates and then examine the relationship between job components and fiscal activity. But in doing so, we also look at the neighborhood workability as a moderator. So as I said early on, the basic methodology that we adopted, first, the study design. So the study design adopted was a cross-sectional design with an online survey. Okay, and we targeted academic staff of universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. And we used online service, especially in the period. This was the major way by which we could gather data. This research is typically correlational, okay? Basically, we have qualitative research, correlational, and then experimental. But our research was more of a correlational and not causal. The study setting, population and selection. So the setting for the study were 4 African countries, Ghana, Nigeria, Tanzania, and then Kenya. And then at the time, the tertiary institutions had reopened by 31st August. So the sample size that we used was about 1,000 academics spread across these universities. So we looked at an elaborate sample for us to get, so that we could generalize our findings. The selection, the participants were selected based on these criteria. Very, very critical. If you want to publish in a good journal, you need to be clear how you selected your sample. First, they should be full-time academics. They should have spent at least a year of work experience, minimum of diploma, resumption of one or more job duties. That is duties which should cover the main job components, okay, teaching on-site, online research, etc. Then there should be observance of national or institutional social distancing protocols. And they should have willingness to participate in the study, okay? And this has ethical implications too. All right, now these were the main variables. We needed to clearly define the main constructs for the research, okay? And there were 6 main constructs, 4 of which were the job components: on-site teaching, online teaching, research, and student assessments. The 2 main variables were also neighborhood workability and physical activity. Okay, so neighborhood workability was measured with a particular scale. And this was an 11-item Australian version. And we needed to defend this particular scale based on the fact that it was used across larger populations. And also it had been adapted to an African situation. In other words, some other researchers had used the scale and published in good journals. So we use the standard scale for our work. Okay. Now, physical activity, which was the main dependent variable, was measured with the short form of the International Physical Activity Questionnaire. Then the other set of variables, which are the confounders, we use the demographic variables, okay, which could confound the relationship between job components and then physical activity. And the main confounders or covariates which had serious impact on the relationship were identified to be gender, education, income, and rank. Now, having given out the questionnaire and then gathered our data, refined the data, we also did a goodness of fit test to make sure that the model was fit for purpose. After that, we conducted our analysis, okay, and these were the main findings from the analysis. Now, for cross-sectional studies, if you want to be able to publish in very good journals, there are ways, because the data is collected one time. In terms of generalizing, you may have problems with these good journals. So what we normally do is to use, for example, sensitivity analysis to make sure that our findings are solid and the analysis is very, very robust. Some other method is common method bias. Okay, yeah. So you can use either of these methods, or sometimes you can use the 2. And these are the modern ways by which you can get your paper published in good journals. Having controlled the ultimate confounding variables, we found out that there was a positive correlation between physical activity and on-site teaching. In other words, when lecturers engage in on-site teaching, it's led to an improvement in their physical activities. What do you mean by this? With on-site teaching comes with classroom activities, okay? So when you go to the classroom, you are speaking, you are stretching your hands, you are moving back and forth in the classroom. And of course, this will involve physical activity. So the report from all the 4 countries showed that there was a positive correlation. However, we did find out that there was a non-significant relationship between teaching online and physical activity. Okay, there was a non-significant relationship. In other words, when we teach online, it's about engaging in activity which is more sedentary. Okay, even as we are online speaking now, you are sitting down, and if you sit down for more hours, then you are engaging in sedentary activity. And therefore, you don't engage in physical activity. And when this progresses for a long time, the research shows that it can lead to developing some other non-infectious diseases. It can lead to obesity and also some other problems. The research found out a positive significant relationship between research and physical activity. And this was quite interesting. But that's how we got the data, and that's what we needed to report. What we saw was that for those who did desk research had a negative relationship with physical activity. However, we have the other component of research, which is field research, like going out to the field, especially for those of us in the sciences. Okay, we supervise research activities. We go out there a lot. And the fact was that the field research activities from the reports overshadowed the desk activities. And for that matter, a positive significant relationship was reported between research and physical activity. Therefore, what it means is that lecturers should engage in more research, or lecturers who engage in more research are likely to be physically active. Okay. Now, there was also the report of a negative relationship between student assessment and physical activity. In other words, when we are assessing students, we engage in activities like marking student work, okay, project work supervision, okay, we need to be sitting down with students and also assessing their work. Marking, especially script check, all of these come with some sedentary activities. So there's a negative relationship between student assessment and physical activity. In other words, the more you engage in student assessments, the less, okay, you engage in physical activity. So this is an inverse or a negative relationship that was reported. On the other hand, where students' assessment is low, physical activity also rises. Now, the non-significant relationship between online teaching and physical activity was made possibly significant. Now, this aspect of the finding is about the role played by the moderator, that is neighborhood workability. Remember that we saw that online teaching had an inverse relationship with workability. In other words, the more we sat down to teach, the more less active we became. However, when we applied the neighborhood workability, this moderator, we did a double check or the scientific analysis at the first level and the second level. When we did the second level, we found out that even though the lecturers who engage in online teaching, if the neighborhood supported workability, then they were likely to be active. Okay, so that's the relation that we got. So you might be engaging in online teaching, you might be sedentary. However, after that, if your neighborhood encourages walking around, you go walking around, and therefore your physical activity will improve. But if the neighborhood does not allow for walkability, then of course you will not walk around. And this was an interesting finding. It has implication for designing our neighborhoods, for designing university communities. And this particular research also has links with building architectural designs, okay, in the modern society. Two, the positive relationship between on-site teaching and physical activity was further strengthened by neighborhood workability. Yes. So there was a positive relationship between teaching on-site and then neighborhood work and physical activity. This positive relationship was further strengthened. It was made better when the neighborhood was walkable. In other words, if we had parks around, recreation centers around the neighborhood, and this was reported from all the countries that we did a survey. So neighborhood workability is a very, very important moderator. Now, this third one too is very interesting. The negative association between student assessment and physical activity was made less negative by neighborhood workability. You know, we said that there was a negative association between student assessment. That's the more you assess students, the more you are likely to be physically active. In other words, if you assess students, the more you are likely to become physically inactive. However, if your neighborhood was walkable, then the extent of the negativity will be reduced. That is what this implies, okay? Yes, so it was also another very interesting finding that this moderator could actually help to reduce the negative consequence of student assessments. And that was another interesting finding. So ladies and gentlemen, the conclusion of this research is that access to workable neighborhoods can encourage physical activity a lot. it can also help to reduce sedentary behavior as academics accomplish core job tasks. Okay, so as we engage in core job duties of teaching online, teaching on-site, research, and student assessments, management, and also those who are in charge of designing the neighborhood should ensure that our neighborhoods are walkable. And this will help lecturers to walk around, exercise around, ride bicycles, engage in more physical activity. And this will improve their health status. So this is the communication that is coming out of our research. And there are other empirical evidences that support the relationship that we built. So thank you very much for listening to us. And we await your contributions as well as questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Opuni Frimpong, for your beautiful and brilliant submission. We invite a few questions from the public, and then we move on. So maybe 1 or 2 questions from the audience, please.
Okay, look, I have just a clarification. Mr. Opuni mentioned social marketing. I want to find out what social marketing actually is vis-a-vis how does it fit into what he presented. It's a very nice presentation. I just want that clarification to understand it better.
Okay, yeah. So since social marketing is about engaging in marketing communication in order to enhance well-being, and the well-being mostly may come in the health areas. But apart from that, we can have well-being in terms of sanitation and then not engaging in social vices. So for this particular research that we did, the social marketing aspect is about encouraging the masses, typically lecturers, so that we can engage in health-conscious behaviors. Okay, so the communication aspect that comes out of this, we should engage in teaching more, or when we are into online teaching, we should also balance it with walkability in the neighborhoods. And once we do that, it will help improve our well-being, and the level of sicknesses associated with sedentary lifestyles will come down amongst us. So that's the essence of the social marketing components.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no more questions, then we say thank you to Mr. Opuni for at least letting us know that the more research we undertake as academics, the more physical activity we engage ourselves in, and that will help us to improve our health. Thank you very much again, Mr. Opuni, for such a brilliant submission. Now we move on to our next presenter, who will be presenting to us on a topic, determinant factors of B2B e-commerce adoption in small and medium scale enterprises. He's in the person of Dr. Elikem Kosnel Uklu, Senior Lecturer and HOD with the Marketing Department. He's a very hardworking lecturer, hardworking HOD, and is also a lover of research. I therefore have the privilege to invite Dr. Elikem Kosnel Uklu to give us his presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Moderator, and good afternoon to colleagues. I'm honored and privileged to have this platform to present to you a paper that, sorry. Just a minute, please. Yeah, thank you very much. And once again, Dr. Moderator, the Dean of the Faculty, the Director for Research, Publication, Innovation, and Transfer, I'm grateful. This is a paper that has been published in Journal of Global Information Technology Management, an SSCI index paper. It took about 19 months, more than 1.5 years, for this paper to be published. In other words, it went through vigorous review. And these are some of the challenges we face as researchers. A paper could take more than a year for it to be accepted. It's a bit challenging, but we hope to do our best. The research title is The Determinant Factors of B2B E-commerce Adoption in Small and Medium-Sized Manufacturing Enterprises. Basically, the research outline tells us that this research examines the relationship between technological, organizational, environmental factors on different levels of B2B e-commerce adoption. So the outline talks about the background, research gap, the objectives, related literature, hypothesis development, research methodology, data analysis, conclusions, implications, limitations, and future research. The era of adoption of information technology or B2B e-commerce has changed the way companies and individuals share information globally. Today, technology has become the mainstay of every economy, and therefore it has promoted international trade among both developed and developing economies. In this research, we adopt the definition of B2B e-commerce as the use of internet and web-based technologies for conducting an interorganizational business transactions. There are many benefits that goes to the use of B2B e-commerce. One of it is that it offers opportunities to companies to be able to access international markets, improves productivity, acquire new suppliers and customers, and more importantly, gain competitive advantage and increases in their profits. And there are some citations there to support this view. B2B e-commerce is increasingly becoming one of the fastest growing domain of technology adoption. It is reported globally that e-commerce market value was roughly $7.35 trillion in 2020. And the market size is estimated to reach 25.65 trillion by 2028. It tells you that the use of B2B commerce is becoming widespread among both developed countries and developing countries because it's become the major requirement for business improvement. However, it is very, very important that SMEs, which form the core of major economy, make use of internet or takes advantage of the use of technology to improve upon their businesses. A report by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development in 2015 indicates that the B2B commerce market is expanding exponentially in high-income countries such as US, UK, China, and Singapore. Whilst when you come to that of Africa, is marginally above 2.0%. According to reports in the developed countries, more than 95% of enterprises are SMEs. In Ghana, we also know that SME accounts for about 80% of the private sector and contributes about 80% of GDP. And more importantly, it accounts for about 85% of manufacturing total and manufacturing total employment. Awuga 2016, Abo and Kote 2010 all attest to this. Currently, there has been an increase in internet usage in Ghana, and this seems to be increasing each year. As of January 2021, Ghana registered approximately 60 million internet users, which is an up by 14% million reported last year, with an internet penetration rate of about 50%. Ghana is rated the 11th largest country of internet users in Africa. And the internet market in Ghana presents potential for growth and development. In this regard, the manufacturing sector in Ghana could adopt B2B e-commerce to improve upon their businesses and expand to the international market. And more importantly, to bridge the digital divide between organizations and their business partners in the Western world. Now, let's identify certain research problems or gaps that necessitated us to carry out this research. You'll find out that when we're reading a lot of literature, the adoption of B2B e-commerce focused predominantly on the developed countries with little on developing economies. So this research, we also found out that most of the research is concentrated on the adoption from an individual approach, which focus more on B2C, B2 business to customer context, whereas there are limited studies on how these various factors affect different adoption levels of B2B e-commerce. Also, review literature, we found out that most of the empirical researches were more concentrated on the developed countries where there are inadequate research in the developing countries. And as a result of that, there tend to be a lot of speculations without taking into proper context what is the e-commerce phenomenon in developing countries. Also, in review literature, we found out that most of the determinants that were used in B2B e-commerce were not looking at how these determinants could affect different levels of adoption. So our main research problem to address here is how do the various factors affect SMEs' adoption of different levels of B2B e-commerce. However, it must be stressed that although various research study B2B e-commerce among SMEs, investigation on how they affect different levels of adoption is less evident in B2B e-commerce literature. Hammond and et al. Also attest to this. So what we intend to do is to find out how we can examine the various factors that impact on the adoption levels of B2B e-commerce in SMEs, particularly taking it or looking at it from what? A sub-Saharan Africa country perspective, and specifically Ghana. So what are our research objectives? To identify the technical factors affecting each level of B2B e-commerce adoption, to identify the organizational factors affecting each level of B2B e-commerce adoption, and more importantly, also look at the environmental factors affecting each level of B2B adoption. Per related literature, we found out that most of the technology adoption models, like the diffusion model, the institutional models, the technology and organizational environment models, are widely known models that are used in information technology and information system literature. However, this study uses the TOE framework, that is the technology, organization, and environment framework, because it is consistent in assessing the technological, internal and external characteristics associated with the adoption of technology. This framework, the TOE framework, proposes that technology adoption among SMEs is influenced by factors relating to technology and organizational context. So looking at the various IT models that we have, we were focusing more on the TOE framework because we believe that it captures all aspects of what relates to technology in every economy. Now, so what do we mean when we talk about technical context? We are looking at the existing technologies that are in use and the new technologies that impact essentially on technology adoption. When we refer to the organizational context, it describes organizational characteristics like the scope, the size, and the managerial beliefs that affects the adoption. And more importantly, when we look at the environment context, we are looking at the industry and the supply chain, business operations, competitors, and government support, among other things. Although this model has been used in the developed countries, one of the advantages that necessitated us adopting this model is that it did not explicitly classify the major factors within the framework, and therefore the variables in each context were varying. Therefore, most researchers apply this framework to suit the purpose of what? Their investigations and concern. So We also look at developing some what we call growth models. B2B commerce in most organizations are not fixed. It involves some level of progression. The use of e-commerce growth models is very, very important in providing a holistic description of the various factors that may influence different B2B commerce adoptions. From the 1990s, a lot of scholars have developed several growth models to describe different stages of e-commerce. This one that we adopted one by DRIPTT and others in 2016. This is a study that was carried out in Egypt. In other words, this e-commerce growth model fits within the African context. So we decided to adopt this model. However, we added some modifications to it by introducing basic B2B commerce applications like the use of emails for business purposes. So when you look at this, this is just telling us the various e-commerce growth models that we have across literature. Now, in developing our research model, we came out with 6 technological, organization, and environmental related factors as against 4 levels of B2B commerce adoption. We were trying to look at how the TOE factors affects, or looking at the relationship between TOE factors on the B2B commerce models. So one of the variable or construct we used was perceived desirability. This describes the degree to which an innovation is considered as appropriate and the right choice. In other words, the tendency to adopt B2B commerce will be higher if SME sees it as a needed choice than those who do not. And the choice of what? Using perceived desirability normally relates to those various benefits that we get when we are using information technology or e-commerce. Relative advantage, compatibility, complexity, triability, all these things take care. All this is compounded to determine the perceived desirability. So our hypothesis says perceived desirability is possibly associated with B2B commerce adoption. Then we came to the organizational factors. Here we're looking at organizational readiness, which is a degree by which available resources seem to be equal to the available resources desirable to adopt a rare innovation and sustain that specific innovation for a long time. So our hypothesis 2 says that organizational readiness is positively associated with what? B2B commerce adoption. Top management support is also one of the organizational factors we considered. It describes the level of corporate leadership, corporate leaders' recognition of the importance of B2B commerce and their commitment to adopt it. This also leads us to our third hypothesis that says that top management support is possibly associated with B2B commerce adoption. Then we look at the environmental factors. That one we look at competitive advantage. When we talk about competitive advantage, it describes the rate at which firms adopt an innovation due to market competition. Competitive pressure has been recognized to be one of the significant determinants of SMEs technology adoption. That led to our 4th hypothesis as whether there is a positive relationship between competitive advantage and B2B commerce adoption. There were business partners' pressure that described the extent of influence and pleasure that a firm experienced from its suppliers and their customers to adopt the B2B commerce. Then our last factor that we considered an organizational factor is government support. Government support, empirical evidence revealed that significance of government support in technology adoption through the provision of technological infrastructure, policies, and funding could have a significant impact on technology adoption. So therefore, we came out with the hypothesis as government support is possibly associated with B2B commerce adoption. This is our conceptual framework. As you can see, we have 6 hypotheses, and it says perceived desirability, how perceived desirability impacts on the B2B commerce adoption levels, which we have level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, which we'll explain detail in our research. So these 6 levels, we're looking at how these 6 factors impact on B2B commerce adoption. Now, our research methodology, sampling and data collection, which is very critical in any research. A questionnaire service was used for data collection from SMEs owners in the manufacturing sector. Our focus was we're looking at SMEs that employ 100 employees down, that is less than 100 employees. And this was based on the classification of businesses in Ghana by the Ghana Enterprises Agency. Then, the study randomly selected 1,124 Ghanaian manufacturer SMEs as the sample frame. And we got this from the database through the Ghana Enterprise Agency, the Registrar General Department, Association of Ghana Industries, and the Global Business Directorate database. These data were provided by these agencies who were looking at who could access, which were accessed through their website. Having randomly selected these 1,124 Ghanaian manufacturing SMEs, we further went on to use a systematic random sampling procedure where a representative sample of 648 manufacturers with websites were chosen using the aggregation of product types and geographical locations as the stratification criteria. The geographical areas that this study covers were 4 out of the 16 regions in Ghana, namely Greater Accra, Western, Ashanti, and Eastern. Furthermore, when we do that, we look at the sample frame by a cross-section of 6 industries. Namely, we categorize it construction and electricals, polymers and rubber, textiles and clothing, pharmaceuticals and chemicals, food processing and beverages, wood, tissue, and paper product, all in a way to increase the generalizability of our research. A pilot study was conducted to test the reliability and validity of the measurement. And of course, our Converge Alpha, all this has to do with, we're trying to look at how feasible or how we can evaluate our data to be sure that it fits within the construct that we want to do and as well as the study. With the help of 15 research assistants, self-administered printed questionnaires were delivered to our sample frames. We follow up by telephone calls and emails. And within a period of 8 weeks, we were able to gather a lot of data. However, in entering the data, we discarded some data, and finally, we settled on a sample size of 315 for our data analysis. Our questionnaires generally consisted of Likert scale from 1 to 5, and most of the literature that we use or statements were from literature reviews. However, some of the research were modified. We modified some of the items to fit the contents of the present study. So in all, 29 items were used to measure the construct. Also, when we were looking at the B2B commerce adoption models, we measured it using 15 electronic business processes. And out of these 15 electronic business processes, we categorized them into 4 different levels of B2B commerce adoption. And as you can see, this is what we adopted, but we modified it on the basis of the researcher's view and the pilot study. So our proposed B2B commerce adoption levels were electronic information, which is level 1, electronic interaction, level 2, electronic transaction, electronic collaboration, level 4. Level 1, which is the electronic information, is the lower level of B2B commerce, and level 4 is the higher level of B2B commerce. So this one spells out the level, the kind of items that we have under each of the levels, which are basic information we're requiring from the customers, from the respondents. And on this basis, we categorize the 4 levels. So that is all you can see. Because of sake of time, I didn't want to go much into the levels, but we had 4 different levels of e-commerce adoption. Now, in analyzing our data, we use the partial least square structure equation model, which has become one of the robust data analysis tool software today. And because our research, we consider this because it allows us to simultaneously analyze data, and also you find out that we're trying to look at restrictive and formative constructs. Therefore, the choice of the PLS model was the best for us, and we used the smart PLS software to measure that. In measuring that, we have to look at the measurement model assessment, and we also look, so that's what we use to measure the factors, as you can see in the figure, because for the sake of time. We also look at the structural model assessment. On the basis of having certified the quality of our work and evaluate the data input, we did run the data analysis in this software. And our result, as you can see, we have the construct which shows the structural model of each level. In other words, if we look at each level of adoption, level 1, which is electronic information, we're trying to see how these 6 factors influence each of the levels of adoption. So we have our path coefficients, we have our t-stars, and the p-values are stated, where we have some being positively insignificant and also others negatively significant. So when you see at the end of our research, we found out that perceived desirability, organizational readiness, and competitive pressure positively and significantly influence the different levels of e-commerce business, e-commerce adoption level. In other words, among all the 4 levels, perceived desirability, organizational readiness, and competitive advantage has a positive relationship and influence the adoption of the 4 different levels that we have. Top management and government support partially had a significant impact on the various levels of e-commerce adoption. In other words, we are trying to say there were some negative relationship in that direction. When it comes to business partner pressure, we realized that it had no significant influence on B2B e-commerce adoption. This research results confirms that the TOE factor influenced B2B e-commerce adoption levels in the Ghanaian manufacturing SMEs. This result also reveals that the various contextual factors have different effects on the different levels of B2B e-commerce adoption. Our study implication. Theoretically, this study extends the TO framework that has been much commended for some theoretical database by many scholars in the developed countries. We believe that looking at this TO framework from a sub-Saharan Africa context, our work has contributed in extending the TO framework. Also, investigation into B2B e-commerce matters in the manufacturing SMEs still is in a growing stage in the developed countries. And it's even scarier in the developing countries, particularly in Ghana or in Africa. Therefore, this research findings as to the increasing body of knowledge in the field of B2B commerce, particularly within the Ghana SMEs, which have limited studies in existing literature. Our study also found out that the top managers are not willing to adopt higher technologies. Therefore, we are advising that we believe that the policy direction should be that organizations to take it upon themselves to show some commitment to the cause of embracing technological innovation and express their fear and belief by participating in various support programs such as IT sensitization, training programs, and activities through work group to change people's perception and attitude about technology adoption. Technology adoption involves the presence of appropriate government policies and support. The government should be more supportive through drafting favorable policies and legislation and provide ICT infrastructure. Government should also design a robust regulatory framework to support B2B commerce adoption and protect businesses and customers from hacking and fraud. And more importantly, technology vendors should be more supportive by offering IT services and promoting appropriate technology to suit the needs of SMEs. It will be very prudent to establish national policies and strategies towards the adoption of technological applications in the Ghanaian context. Limitations. This study employed a quantitative method that is based on self-administered cross-sectional survey to examine the determinants associated with the different adoption level. Obviously, cross-sectional survey only reflects respondents' belief, perception, and experience towards B2B commerce at a particular period of time. We also ran out that the 15 electronic business processes that were used to categorize the 4 different levels of adoption reflects the current B2B commerce application among the Ghanaian SMEs, which is very, very inadequate. The research finding also clearly shows that Ghanaian manufacturers are not adopting advanced B2B e-commerce technologies. They are not adopting it. Future research is undoubtedly needed to validate the application of this outcome by applying it to other SME sectors such as the financial and services, and also across different developed countries as well as developing countries. This is our references, some references, and thank you for your attention. Any questions, please?
Thank you, HOD, Marketing, Dr. Alekam Kosner Oklu, for a wonderful presentation. You fed us so much to give us more information as to the reason why SMEs must adopt electronic marketing just to survive this global competitive market. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, if anybody has any question, maybe one or two, then we move on. Any questions from you, please? Any question from our audience?
Yeah, Doc.
Yeah, we are listening, please.
Yeah, Dr. Elikem, thanks a lot for this wonderful presentation. No wonder it's attracting a high level of citations all over. But my question is, did you peradventure try to find out any hidden covariates or confounders that could have had an impact on B2B levels other than the variables that you use?
Thanks for the question. Honestly, we didn't look at that, and that has been one of the future research that we'll then looking into. Thank you.
All right, all right.
That's a very good point, and we'll consider it in our next research.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Opuni. Any more questions, please? All right. Thank you very much, all our presenters. We've enjoyed your presentations. It's been so wonderful to us, giving us more information and educating us as well. These are insightful presentations. Thank you once again. I think we are all happy with this presentation. Then, if I have to sum up all that we've listened to, in a few words, I would say that we've been told how to format project work. If our students are here, I was given by Dr. Asabre, told us more about how to format our project work so that we meet the requirements. Then, Dr. Asabre also gave us tips on guidelines and publication processes, which was very helpful, very insightful, and I've taken so much points from his presentation. And then also listen to how we can source information from the library by our friend Donos, who stood in for Dr. Proki. He did so well to show us how we can get quality information when we visit our library. And then we have Professor Winfo giving us so much information about youth employable situation in Ghana and how we as lecturers can coach students with both coaching and lecturing to equip them with employable skills so that right from school they can find something to do for themselves. And finally, Dr. Oklu presented to us the need for SMEs to adopt electronic commerce to survive this competitive global marketing environment. We thank you all for this presentation, and we say kudos to you all. Now we are bringing our program to an end, and we will invite the co-host of this program, who is the Dean of the Faculty, that's Dean of Business Faculty, Dr. Sani Bashiru, to give us the closing remarks.
Doc, he has been invited for a meeting by the province. He's informed me about that. So I guess somebody else has to give the closing remarks. Let me do it quickly so that, by your permission, let me do it.
That's okay, thank you.
Do it, all right. So soon our program has come to an end. Our webinar, which has been very insightful, has come to an end. The moderator has given a good summary about what has been presented. And on behalf of DRIPTT, on behalf of the University Library, and then the Faculty of Business, I would like to thank everyone who made time to come for this particular webinar. It is important that as academic staff, we elaborate on the research that we are doing. Research is something that has to be known. It shouldn't be on the shelf. So we've heard from faculty members today. I'm very grateful that they availed themselves for the presentation. When it's like that, it helps the Directorate to also move forward. Because if we don't get people presenting and we don't get people encouraged to do it, then we are stuck. So on behalf of the Directorate, as I said, we are glad that everything has gone through. As stated earlier, next semester, Dr. Adai and myself will focus on the other departments to also get them involved, and we'll organize another seminar. And we also hope that that one too will be as fruitful as this one. The meeting has been recorded, so what we'll do is we'll put it online. We'll get a link on YouTube. Obed in the library will take care of that. So once it's ready, those who are not able to attend, you can post it on the platform or even on the website so that people can have access to it. Thank you very much once again, and have a nice day, all of you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sabri, our hardworking coordinator, hardworking director for research. Thank you so much for this.
All right.
We thank you all, colleagues, for your kind effort and presentation. May the good Lord grant us all the strength and wisdom to do more of these programs. On this note, I'll invite another volunteer to give us a closing prayer.
Yeah, let's pray. Lord Almighty, we thank you so much for this exercise. We pray that you have mercy on us. Continue to open up our insights. Continue to help us to love research and to give us opportunity to communicate our findings. Thank you so much. We hope that you give us another day in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. We hope to meet another time.
All right. Thank you. Bye.